Okay, today we're going to be talking about Lesson 8.2, Dividing Monomials. And to divide monomials, or rather to divide two powers that have the same base, you simply subtract the exponents. So what we're saying is if you have a to the m power, and you divide it by a to the n power, then your answer would be a to the m minus n power. So in order to show a few examples of that, our first one, example 1, would be if you have a to the 4th, b to the 7th, over ab squared. And what you would do here is if you want to, you could think of it as, okay, what if we just separate out the a's? We have an a to the 4th over an a to the 1st times a b to the 7th over a b squared, okay? And we could just look at those individually. And what we would do is simply subtract the exponents. For the a's, 4 minus 1 is 3. And for the b's, 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay, so that's a pretty easy example. There were no coefficients, no raising powers to powers or anything. So let's look at a more complicated example that'll have a little bit more of that other stuff in there. So in this example, we're going to have 2a cubed b to the 5th over 3b squared, and then we're going to raise the entire thing to the 3rd power. So there are different approaches that you can take with this, but one approach would be to say, okay, this means that I'm going to raise the numerator to the 3rd power, and I'm also going to raise the denominator to the 3rd power. Okay, so then in my next step, I would say, okay, so let's do 2 to the 3rd power, which is 8. And then a to the 3 times 3, which would be 9th power, b to the 5 times 3, which would be 15th power, over 3 to the 3rd, which would be 27. b squared to the 3rd would be b to the 6th, because I'm multiplying the exponents when I raise a power to a power. Okay, as far as the 8/27 goes, there's nothing I can do to simplify that. It simply is what it is, because they have no common factors. I could then say, all right, I will, I have an a in the numerator, but I don't have any a's in the denominator, so I'll just still have an a to the 9th in the numerator. And then for my b's, it'd be b to the 15th over b to the 6th, so I do 15 minus 6, which would be 9, and since it's positive, it's going to stay in the numerator. If it had come out to be a negative number, then it would have moved down into the denominator. Another approach that I could have taken would have been to look at the b's from the very beginning, and instead of raising both of the b's to the 3rd power, I could have subtracted the exponents first. So let's take a look at what that would have looked like. That would have been, I would have still had 2a cubed, but I would do b, and I would take the 5 minus 2, and I would have a b to the 3rd over 3. And then I would have raised that whole thing to the 3rd power. Either way, the answer still would have come out to be the 8a to the 4th, b to the 9th over 27. It's just a matter of which you prefer to do first. Do you want to raise each thing to the 3rd power and then subtract exponents? Or do you want to subtract exponents at the very beginning and then raise it to the 3rd power? Either way is fine. Okay, so that's that one. That's as much as we can do with that to simplify that. What we can do now, let's take a look at a third example. And this time we're going to throw in some negative exponents into it. So it'll be, even more confusing, or even not really confusing, just more steps to it. So let's, in example 3, let's take a look at 4a to the negative third, 4a to the negative third, b to the 6th, over 16a squared, b to the 6th, and c to the negative 5th. Okay, so here I'm going to move those things that have negative exponents around. I think I'll do that first. So that would be 4/16, and then I'm going to take that a to the third, move it down into the denominator, and put it down here, along with that a squared b to the 6th. I'm going to keep the b to the 6th that was already in the numerator. And now I'm also going to move up the c to the negative 5th. I'm going to move that up into the numerator. So here goes my c to the 5th. Now I'm going to notice, okay, I'm going to simplify the 4/16 to become 1/4. And then I want to cancel out the b's because they're both b to the 6. So 6 minus 6 is 0, so they're gone. And then I have c to the 5th over, and then down in the bottom, I've got the a cubed times a squared. 3 plus 2 would be 5. So I'll have an a to the 5th in the denominator. So my final answer is c to the 5th over 4a to the 5th. I could rewrite it like this, just to make it all in one. And there's my final answer. So all you have to remember is that when you are dividing monomials, or dividing numbers that have the same base, then what you do is you subtract the exponents. So that's today's lesson.